Good evening, and welcome to our top story. A new wave of political shifts is unfolding across Europe, and at the center of it lies one of the world's longest and most painful conflicts, Palestine. In recent months, we have seen a significant change in how European nations are positioning themselves. For decades, most countries in Europe hesitated to take decisive steps, preferring to follow the United States' lead, or insisting that Palestinian recognition must come only after peace negotiations. But that wall of hesitation is beginning to crack. France, one of Europe's most influential powers, has officially recognized Palestine as a state. President Emmanuel Macron announced the decision at the United Nations, framing it as a step toward reviving a peace process that has long been stalled. This is not just symbolic. France is a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and its recognition carries real diplomatic weight. Portugal quickly followed, formally recognizing Palestine through its foreign ministry. Luxembourg, too, has stepped forward, joining the growing group of European nations ready to acknowledge Palestinian statehood. These recognitions have created momentum, a chain reaction across the continent that may soon pressure others to follow suit. But Europe is far from united. Germany, the largest economy in the European Union, has made it clear that it has no immediate plans to recognize Palestine. Berlin argues that recognition without direct negotiations risks undermining Israel's security and complicating future peace talks. Italy shares a similar position, warning that unilateral moves could backfire. And in Eastern Europe, countries like Hungary and the Czech Republic remain firmly aligned with Israel's stance. So we see two Europes emerging, one that is ready to push forward with recognition as a moral and political statement, and another that remains cautious, insisting that peace must come before statehood. Meanwhile, the war in Gaza has intensified public pressure. Across Europe, citizens are taking to the streets. In Italy, tens of thousands have staged protests, disrupting transport and demanding an end to the conflict. In London, Paris, Madrid, and Berlin, weekly demonstrations have filled city squares, with protesters carrying Palestinian flags and calling for justice, humanitarian aid, and accountability. Civil society is increasingly pushing governments to take bolder action. Behind the scenes, European leaders are also wrestling with complex dilemmas. On the one hand, there is deep sympathy for the Palestinian people, especially after months of tragic images from Gaza. On the other hand, European nations fear that fully confronting Israel could strain diplomatic ties, threaten security partnerships, and even fuel tensions within their own borders. Some leaders are attempting to strike a balance. France has framed its recognition not as an anti-Israel move, but as a pro-peace gesture, a way of telling both sides that the international community still wants a two-state solution. Macron even clarified that acknowledging Palestine does not ignore the Hamas attacks that triggered the latest conflict. Instead, France argues that recognition is the only way to prevent violence from repeating endlessly. Portugal's foreign minister echoed that sentiment, saying the move was meant to keep the vision of peace alive. Luxembourg, in its official statement, declared that the Palestinian people deserve the dignity and rights that come with statehood, and Europe must not remain silent. Yet, the divide in Europe is striking. Germany insists that any recognition without Israel's consent undermines trust. Poland and Hungary argue that security threats in the Middle East directly affect Europe, and therefore recognition should not come lightly. The United Kingdom, though no longer part of the EU, has called for greater humanitarian assistance, but has stopped short of recognition. This tug-of-war within Europe reflects a deeper reality. The continent is caught between its moral responsibilities and its strategic calculations. On one side, there is enormous empathy for Palestinians who have suffered displacement, war, and occupation for generations. On the other side, there are long-standing ties with Israel, in trade, technology, security, and intelligence, that no government is eager to jeopardize. What happens next may shape not just Europe's role in the Middle East, but also its image in the global South. Countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America are watching closely. Many of them already recognize Palestine and view Europe's hesitation as hypocrisy. For Europe, moving decisively could restore credibility as a fair broker of peace, but hesitation risks further alienating nations that already see the West as biased. It is also worth noting the timing. The United States, traditionally the key mediator in the Israel-Palestine conflict, is now seen as less effective. Washington's strong alignment with Israel has left little room for Palestinians to trust American diplomacy. That vacuum has opened the door for Europe to step in. But can a divided Europe truly lead? That remains the big question. For Palestinians, the recognitions by France, Portugal, and Luxembourg bring hope, not because they immediately change conditions on the ground, but because they add pressure on Israel and the global community to take the issue seriously. Symbolism matters. Each recognition chips away at the narrative that Palestine's statehood must forever remain on hold. For Israel, however, these moves are seen as hostile. Israeli officials argue that recognition rewards extremism and weakens their security. They have expressed disappointment, especially with France, a country they once considered a close partner. This tension could strain Israel-EU relations in the months ahead. Meanwhile, humanitarian concerns remain urgent. European governments, whether they recognize Palestine or not, are united in one demand: more aid must reach civilians in Gaza. The images of destroyed neighborhoods, overcrowded hospitals, and starving families have deeply shaken European societies. Calls for ceasefires, safe corridors, and international monitoring are louder than ever. In conclusion, Europe today stands at a crossroads. On one path lies a bold new direction, recognizing Palestine, amplifying its legitimacy, and perhaps reviving a peace process that many considered dead. On the other path lies caution, hesitation, and the hope that negotiations will someday return. What is clear is that Europe's actions are no longer just symbolic. They carry real diplomatic consequences, shaping alliances, influencing global perceptions, and sending signals to both Palestinians and Israelis about the future of this decades-long conflict. And so, as more European nations debate their positions, the world watches closely. Will Europe unite and take a historic stand? Or will it remain divided, leaving the fate of Palestine once again in limbo? Only time will tell.